Hello everyone, Roxabox90 here, back with a Magic the Gathering financial speculation video. So I know I've been in and out of the market in terms of what's been going on, but I noticed with the new announcement that Wizards just made about the revisiting block rotation that a lot of interesting stuff's been going on, and I want to discuss it. So we'll go through a couple of things in this video, primarily discussing the block rotation changes, the overall new product lines that have been created because, and product pushes that have been created because of the block rotation changes, and also in terms of how that's maybe affecting the market in ways that maybe you guys haven't noticed. So something that I've been noticing, and I think it's a trend. So for those who aren't aware, back in the day, there was an article from Mark Rosewater, Metamorphosis, back when they changed block rotation. It used to be you'd have a big triple set block, one large set, two smaller sets, and you have a core set smack in the middle of the summer, and that would break up these triple blocks, and they would overlap over years, and it was kind of sloppy and messy, and the core set never seemed to have a place. So what they did is they got rid of, and you could read the full article, but they ended up getting rid of this setup, and instead they have now two blocks, one large set, one small set, and then one large set, one small set, and in between this they have a lot of specialty products. That's how they break it up throughout the year. So they still have four sets. So instead of having one triple set block and a core set, now they have two blocks of two sets each, which is the way it's been going. Now, the way they decided to do rotation back then was they would do an 18-month rotation, where the standard would rotate faster. So if a new set came out, 18 months later, that newest set would be pulled out of standard rotation. It used to be 2 or even more years, depending on the sets. So it ended up where standard was a longer cycle, which gave people more time to play with the cards and more time to develop. They cut it shorter, hoping to invigorate play styles, which it kind of did, but it also made it very difficult, as they say in their newest article, revisiting the standard rotation, and you guys can read both of these down below. Here they decided to change it back to the two block paradigm, where they have a 2-year rotation. This makes it much easier. Instead of rotating effectively twice yearly overall in terms of the time, because you introduce two blocks and the oldest block gets cut, now it's once a year, which makes the overall cycle from beginning to end for a set only now 2 years instead of only 18 months. Now, it's important to note here is that it's maybe the big impact is going to be in standard. I think this will help keep prices a little bit down. It'll help keep people more invested in standard because you're willing to buy into decks that have longevity. You're less likely to, if you know your deck's going to rotate 6 months sooner, then maybe you aren't willing to invest. Also, if you leave standard for a little bit, they even mention if you leave for a few months and you come back and your deck is now gone, that makes it very difficult for players. Now, of course, it's not a perfect rule, but that's what they decided to change it up. And they had a bunch of issues and things that they discussed about the solution, how they're going to do it, and you can read the full article, of course, below in the description. What I found interesting about this was, besides the fact I think it's going to make standard prices keep them down slightly because the cards will have more of longevity. Newest cards are not going to make as big a splash since so many old cards are still in rotation, and it's not going to be a desperate catch-up trying to buy new cards in order to stay at the top of the curve as readily. So I think that's going to go on. Standard will probably see a small price drop overall in its impact. It'll also mean people will be more encouraged to play standard because they won't be as concerned with this rotation. But I think there's other stuff going on, which, as I mentioned before, about the multiple products that are coming out. So you have this year, we had Oath of the Gatewatch, Shadows of Innistrad, Eldritch Moon, and Kaladesh. Those are the regular sets. Then we also had a supplemental product. We had Eternal Masters, we had From the Vault Lore, we had the Commander 2016 set, we had the Plane Chase Anthology, and perhaps most importantly, we had the Masterpieces, which was announced by on the site, I believe, as Mark Rosewater. Yep. As well. So what does all this mean, having so many supplemental products all coming out alongside a standard based reprint set? Like every single set, they're going to have these masterpiece cards, is what it sounds like, and the masterpieces are going to end up, they're not going to be very common, but they're going to allow for reprints of very, very fancy cards on a more regular basis. So all of this creates a reprint land. We're living in reprint land, which for most players are very happy. investors should be concerned. And the reason why I'm thinking it should be concerned is because anything that's not on the reserve list now is effectively up for grabs. It's very easy for these cards to see reprints, and even though the masterpieces, for example, don't have a major impact on the overall card prices necessarily because of how few are actually printed, but I did notice that there is, whenever they come out, for instance, one of the most powerful they don't have it here, is Ethervile. And it actually pushed down the price by a good 10-15% just by this coming out, even though it's not a true alternative because these kind of cards are so much more expensive as options. But just having another one in market means people are concerned they might consider reprinting it again. And they also, what happened as well is important to note. Not only is we have so many reprints, but you have now a constant consideration that there's going to be some kind of supplemental product in the future which will reprint more and more cards, such as Modern Masters 2017. This thing is announced, and what I noticed happening is even before it was announced, we were seeing pressure on cards that do very well in Modern. Even they do well in multiple formats, but they do very well in Modern. So even before this came out, we now know to expect this kind of stuff. So given Eternal Masters was this year, next year would probably be Modern Masters. So even before this was announced, there was stuff going on in market, and then this comes out and is announced, and you see even more of an impact. So for example, running through some cards here: Snapcaster Mage, Liliana the Veil, Archangel of Thune, Damnation, Voice of Resurgence, Blood Moon, Goblin Guide, Crucible of Worlds, and potentially Cavern of Souls. Now, if you didn't notice, what they pretty much all have in common, except for Cavern of Souls, is that you have here Midsummer is the high for a number of the cards, where they are effectively doing well. Not Liliana, but I guess it's not so much Midsummer. They have a high point in the last year and a half, and then what happens is that they have this steady decline. Snapcaster has not been reprinted ever. We had a promo printing, but hasn't been reprinted. Liliana hasn't really been reprinted, and these are not the cards you necessarily see in a standard block, which means that most of the time people thought they were safe. But we've seen so many reprints and so many supplemental products that it's up for grabs now. The chances of something like this being reprinted are significantly higher, which means I think you see an overall impact on the market even before Modern Masters 2017 was actually revealed. You see the price pressure downward. People are less willing to hold on and invest into these cards in large numbers because of, and this creates a situation where, because of the pressure in the market and the concern, it creates an almost artificial ceiling or pressure to keep the ceiling down, which is good I think for players. I like that exists. It also makes speculating and investing in cards much more difficult. Of course, reserve list is the backup. I think a lot of people will gravitate, the real investor people who invest a lot will gravitate towards reserve list style cards because of how dangerous it is now playing games with these kind of cards. And you notice even something like Damnation, which over and over again Wizards has teased us, you see here that there is this decline over time, and it's expected it's going to see a reprint. Pretty much all of these have had that effect, and it could be a little bit of a limited lens. Maybe I need to look a little bit more broadly. If you guys have other examples that you think counter this perspective or give an alternative path, please put those down below in the comment section. I think the one exception here was Cavern because it's more of a legacy card and commander card than a modern card, but it does see play, and you're not noticing it dip as quite as readily because of that. But this is what I'm seeing in the market, and this means for people who are investors, you're going to likely need to be a little more careful in terms of expecting cards to shoot up and expecting cards to do particularly well. And for people who like to play with the cards, this I think is good news because it means that by creating an atmosphere of reprints, what Wizards is doing is encouraging consumer players who are consuming in order to play, that we're creating an environment that will likely keep prices down overall for most cards, which, I mean, that's what players effectively want. They want to be able to play. So that it's a pro-con. I'm not saying it was better one way or the other, but just so you know, this is something I've been noticing as a trend, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. So if you enjoyed the video, please tap the like button. If you're new to the channel, check and subscribe, comment below, and as always, RoxyBox90 signing out. I'll see you guys next time.